Welcome to the Joe Alexander Show. Welcome to the Joe Alexander Show. Welcome to the Joe Alexander Show.
All right, so no surprise here, but apparently Streamlabs failed at streaming to YouTube. So that's really super cool. But anyway, all right, that's what I wanted to find out from this stream today. Anyway, because I had to renew, and if it's going to be this much of a nightmare to just go live, it says I'm live, but it's not. It's not. I'm not seeing anything. Is it working on YouTube? Just before we get started, now I'm seeing something. Okay, it looks like it's live now. Okay. I was gonna say, man, like, come on, bro. Like, it cannot be this hard to go live on YouTube from Streamlabs. Everybody does it all the time. All right, so this is the one that didn't have the All right, cool. All right, let me promote this really quick, Steve, and we'll get this out, and we'll see what we get.
Ready to rock and roll, brother.
Yeah, you got stuff booted up already. I found some awesome articles over the past couple days, and
did you find out some stuff you didn't know?
Yes and no. Not like anything crazy, but
well, I dug in on the crazy stuff, so
there's so many different conspiracies about what these guys could be.
That's like anything.
Yeah.
People can't agree if Michelle Obama's a man or a woman, so
I know the answer to that, but other people don't know the answer.
Don't we all?
All right, I just got to get the Rumble one shared, and we'll be ready to go. Apparently, we're live on there at work just fine today, except that the only thing I did wrong was I made two links to it on YouTube because I didn't know it worked the way that it worked. All right, we're golden. Let me just share that to X, and we're done. About the only thing X is useful for, and I don't even think it helps me. There we go. All right, there we go. We're good. All right, so today we are talking about the Men in Black. Most people know what that is, thanks to Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, especially. But there's more to it than that. So I guess let's dig in and see what we see here. What do you got booted up there, Steve? You want me to put that on the screen?
Yeah, it's just a little bit of information about it. That right there. Hold on. I forgot I'm controlling it. So that right there is the comic book that Men in Black is based on. I guess a lot of people don't know that it's based on a comic book.
Oh, you mean the movie?
The last show we did.
Yeah.
I had both Bassett, who has the UFO.
Dan Aykroyd, if you're not aware.
And Greer. Both Bassett and Greer were there. They were my two guests for the day. Well, the
I
show
must
was
be
canceled.
too young to know who he is.
And I was outside before I knew it was canceled, in between the interviews. And I was outside, and Britney Spears called me because she wanted me to appear on Saturday Night Live with her. And so I was outside having a cigarette, the phone rang. Oh, Brittany, how you doing? Oh, sure, of course I will. I turned away like this. I turned back, and there was a black Ford across the road, a black Ford sedan. And I was trying to look at the plate, and the plate seemed kind of like fuzzy, and I was, definitely a police car. And two guys were there, and a big, tall guy got out of the back seat. And he stood in the street on 42nd Street. It was. We were at 42nd Street and 8th Avenue. And he looked right at me. And literally, I was on the phone. Hell, sure, of course I'd love the show. Saw the Ford, went back like this, turned back like a half second later.
Steve, I think it's coming through on your
was
TV
gone.
too.
And that car did not go past me.
Oh, you know what?
Like a U-turn, because I would have seen 42nd Street. I would have seen that thing take a U-turn and go away. That car vanished. That car was a cloaked vehicle of some type. And whether this was like a warning to me, because the guy got out of the back seat, gave me a real dirty look. That car vanished. I know what I saw. And you know, it was just
Better,
this
Joe?
fast. It was, oh, hi, Brittany, sure. Oh, of course, I'd love to. Guy gives me a dirty look. Oh, well, sure. Car gone. That's what happened.
You can still hear it.
And
Yeah.
then 2 hours later, we were told we were not to continue taping, and the show was canceled, and none of them would air. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Was that an MIB experience? You know, black helicopters, you know, military abductions that happen. Sometimes people are taken and they talk about then being visited by, you know, military personnel and debriefed about their abduction. Was it, you know, was it a technology associated with some of these beings that are visiting that wanted to warn me off, or that wanted to give me verification that I was on the right track? I don't know.
Transition.
But I do know I did turn back a second later, and you know, it takes so long for an automobile accelerating from 0 to 40 miles an hour to reach the corner of 8th Avenue and 42nd Street going past me, and then pulling a U-turn and going out towards Times Square. I would have seen that car. And I looked around. I mean, I was looking for that then. It was gone. So, I don't know. The tapes exist. I have them. We're going to try to...
So this here
happened here yesterday,
is, they say, the only
you
image of
weren't
Men in
here.
Black ever caught on
He said,
camera.
There's a couple
I don't
guys
know if
in
you
here
ran
looking
across
for
it.
you. And I said, a couple guys? What do you mean? And he said, well, this is really hard for me to say. He said, but there's a couple really strange-looking men that were here. And they kind of freaked everybody out, and they were asking questions about you. And, of course, now I'm getting a little bit nervous, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, well, they were, he goes, I don't know how to describe them except for extremely odd-looking. They were really, really tall. He said, and they were identical height. They were the exact same height. They were wearing the exact same clothes, and they had the exact same faces, like they were twins. And he said they were wearing black suits, black trench coats. They were wearing like the old-fashioned Federo hat. They had extremely, extremely pale skin. And he said they came in and they looked around a little bit and they asked for you. And I said, I'm sorry, he's actually not working today. And it seemed like they didn't believe me, so they started to walk around the hotel, and shortly after they went to the tour desk, and he goes, I got busy. I started to have to bring cars around and get luggage, and by the time I came back, they were gone. But he goes, they freaked me out, and I really wanted to tell you that there were these weird guys in here looking for you. So, of course, now I'm a little bit skeptical and I'm a little bit freaked out all at the same time. So the first thing I do is I run into my security office, because I know how to work the security system, and I rewound the cameras, and sure enough, here comes two gentlemen through the front door looking exactly how he described. Then the next day, I was talking with my tour desk, and one of them asked to talk to me. She came in my office, the same as my bellman, and she said, I need to tell you about something that happened. I heard that you heard that there were some men looking for you. And I said, yes. And she said, they asked a few questions about you, and they said strange things that I didn't understand. And they were talking about government and conspiracies, and none of it made any sense to me. But she goes, they were very, very scary. And I said, well, why were they scary? And she said, they had no facial hair, none. She said they had no eyebrows, no eyelashes, nothing. Their hair looked like they had a wig on, like it was attached to their hat, like it wasn't even real. And she said, and the scariest thing, their eyes were so big and so blue that they almost hypnotized me a little bit. And she goes, and you're going to think I'm crazy when I tell you this, but I swear they knew what I was thinking. I swear. And I don't think I'm crazy, but I don't even know how they could do it, and I don't know why I'm even telling you this. She goes, so I started to think about things other than you, and I don't even know if it worked. And she started to cry, and she said one more thing before she left. She said, these men, they didn't blink. Not once did I see them blink.
All right, that's a different take on them that I've heard.
Yeah, man.
Sorry.
Where they sound like they're kind of like clones or possibly aliens themselves and so on. That's another take that I've heard about them too. So yeah, I don't know, you know.
So they touched on a couple things in that video with the where they came in that I picked up on a lot. The lack of facial hair, the unnatural movement, action. They don't know how to talk right. A lot of people talked about them not having joints in like their wrist or their hands. Lipstick around their lips because they don't actually have lips. Mismatched eyes. And just like I don't want to say alien because we're talking about something that's connected to UFOs, but doesn't seem natural.
Of Earth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or space,
or
perhaps.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've heard this. I've heard that one too. I found an article from All That's Interesting too. We don't have to look at it now, but it talks about who they are. Kind of gives you a different kind of, you know, different take on who they actually are and so on and so forth. Because they're not this isn't the first time Men in Black wasn't the first thing on them. There's been, I think, books like right here. There's one that's showing The Men Who Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers by Gray Barker.
Oh yeah, I got all that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, they've been being spoken of for quite some time.
Yeah.
This isn't like some new thing that it just come out of nowhere. Oh, what the heck is, this isn't like one of these new conspiracies or anything. This has actually been around, and people for the longest time have said that this is actually a government organization. Now, whether that's true or not, how are we ever going to know? But
We won't.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, that's kind of where we are with that whole thing. It's like, how are we ever going to know what exactly what they actually are? Is there anything else you found out? Because I know there's all kinds of different avenues to go down.
So, what I want to touch on first, because I'm going to refer to this while we're talking, is I had mentioned to you yesterday about tulpas, and you kind of were like, "What's that?" So, a tulpa is something that is brought forth basically by people believing in it, and by paying attention to it, it becomes more real. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So us talking
demons. I'm like, you don't have to believe in demons, but if there's people out there that do, and they keep invoking them and trying to make them real, it brings some kind of energy forth.
Yeah.
Be it an actual demon out of nothing that now is there, you know what I'm saying? Or like the energy of such. So yeah, I get that.
So they there's a lot of theories that go down that avenue, and going down that avenue start to bring them back to like the Salem witch trials and the Black Plague, because during the Black Plague, I don't know if you ever heard, but there would be entities on the outside of town with scythes, swishing at the grass. The grass wouldn't fall, but if they appeared outside your town, everyone would die. So some people posit that this is the same entity, just a modern version of it, which would make sense because you're gonna anything you see, you're gonna define through the lens of your own time. So we see a suit, they wouldn't know what a suit was. They would say a robe. You know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily mean that's what it is, but that is an interesting theory that I saw put forward.
Yeah, but the people that see him don't always die, though. They just tell them to shut up. You know what I'm saying?
No. Like more like they're a harbinger. So the guy who came up with it, the modern version, was a guy named Albert K. Bender. He was a nerd. He had come up with a magazine, and he formed a little society in 1952. He was visited in 1953 and told to knock it off. He's the first person to have ever described the Men in Black. He said he was visited by 3 of them. They had glowing eyes and they had fedora-style hats they wore down over their eyes to hide the glow. He said that didn't really work all that well. He was really, really, really into sci-fi and stuff. And the book you mentioned, The Man Who Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers, was actually about him.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's the thing. There's a lot of documentaries about them out there. But I found a ton, but they're all like an hour long or 42 minutes. Like, yeah,
that's why I had to cut that video, just to kind of have some visual elements without trying to scrub through while we're live.
Let me see if I can bring this one up really quick. I think I should be able to. I don't know how it'll play if I use this particular web browser, but we'll give it a try. There's a shorter, like 9-minute one that I found. I just got to get logged in. Apparently, I did not remember to do that.
Okay.
Booted up all my bookmarks, but I didn't log into the damn YouTube that has ad free.
So while you're doing that, I'm going to say I do not believe they work for the government. I do not believe they're sheep dip people. You don't know what sheep dip means. That means you're in the military. They discharge you from the military, and then they bring you back in an unofficial capacity to the same job, so that you're a civilian.
Yeah,
I don't believe any of that.
Yeah, I see, and that's the thing. I knew this would be kind of a wild show because there's so many different beliefs as to what they are, what they do, and so on. I've even heard people try to link them to the, what are they called, the black-eyed kids or whatever.
Yeah, there was another. There was a creature that someone was researching too. I can't. It'll come to me. But they I believe they said they either killed one or they saw one, and it looked like Westerville creature. So the thing is, it's hard for people of our age to talk about it because when we were in our teenage years, Men in Black came out.
Yeah.
And that's all anybody's going to know. And that's part of another theory, that they did that to soften us up.
Yeah.
To soften us up and prepare us for the eventuality of aliens.
This just keeps wanting to play, so I'm going to just bring it up. Yeah, I mean, and we'll get into the idea of aliens here in a bit, obviously, because it's definitely linked to this. Well, let's check this one out. It's just 9 minutes. It's kind of an abridged version of what they are. It's kind of, it covers just the, but let's see.
The Men in Black. Everyone who's heard of them can't help but be fascinated by their secrecy, and anyone who's tried doing research on them will know that, real or not, there really is a lack of information out there about their existence. Now, most people's perception of them comes from the famous movie The Men in Black, or even the observers from Fringe, but in this video you will see that the real thing is far more terrifying than how they are portrayed in the media. In real life, it's believed they dress in black suits and come into your home uninvited, or bump into you in the street to tell you that what you thought was an alien craft or alien being was just your imagination running wild. It wasn't really there, so do not go spreading it around to your friends or family, or we will bring you nothing but harm. They are said to work with or for the government, and apparently often claim to be representatives of the Nation of the Third Eye, either as government officials or some part of the military service. Their appearance is believed to be somewhat agent-looking, with their black suits, hats, and sometimes glasses. Those who believe they have been contacted by them say that it's not their clothing that disturbs them though, but their unusual facial features and odd behavior. In 80% of believed reports, they have been described as having no facial hair, large unhuman eyes, bizarre movements, and monotone robotic voices. This has led many to believe that the Men in Black might not actually be men in black, but instead extraterrestrial beings working alongside the government, trying to keep secrets from getting out. If you have seen the video I made about believed Men in Black encounters, you will know that visits from them date back to the Maury Island incident in 1947, but since then there have been hundreds of believed visits from them, 5 of which I talked about in that other video, such as Albert K. Bender's encounter in which men dressed in black harassed and threatened him after he was going to publish what he believed was strong evidence of alien sources, leading to him closing down his publications, right up to the famous actor Dan
You just
Aykroyd's
played that
encounter
one.
in New York City. But
Yep.
there are many more believed encounters, and an extremely interesting one is that of Danny Gordon. It all started in Wytheville, Virginia, on the morning of October the 7th, 1987, when radio reporter Danny Gordon checked in, but this time he reported over the radio that 3 local sheriff's deputies all claimed to have seen a UFO nearby. After Danny's skeptical report to the listeners, the radio station was flooded with people claiming that they too also witnessed the unknown craft. Being a skeptic and thinking it was just experimental aircrafts, 2 weeks after all the phone-ins and reports, Danny and his friend decided to take a trip to where these UFOs were being reported. They did see something strange in the sky, but it was the second day when they returned where Danny managed to get a photograph that would back up everyone's reports. He returned home, but before he had a chance to develop the photo, he said he received a call from somebody who refused to identify himself. He told Danny that the CIA and the federal government were very interested in the Wythe County UFOs. Danny also received a few unknown calls from a person saying, "It's not for your place to be messing in defense matters." Danny attended a press conference on the sightings on October the 23rd, 1987, and when he returned, he noticed his house had been broken into. Nothing was stolen, but Danny is convinced someone was looking for the photographs he took. He quickly developed them, but they were poor quality. But a few weeks later, he managed to spot the UFO again in the sky, outside of a mall whilst with his family, and once again photographed these mysterious lights. For weeks after this, he was harassed by phone calls from believed government agents, and on one occasion, 2 men visited his home to supposedly interview him about the UFO sighting. Danny said they stayed for around 45 minutes. One was talking and the other man was taking photographs of his home. They told him it would be published in the local newspaper and that they would send it to him. Danny didn't suspect anything suspicious with all of the media attention he had been getting during this time. But when he didn't receive the paper weeks after, he rang up the local newspaper and they told him that they had not run a report on him. A few weeks later, Danny was looking through his UFO files, including some of the photographs he had taken, but noticed that the set he took outside of the mall were missing. Danny was now confident the men who entered his home were the real men in black and had stolen the photographs. A few months later, Danny collapsed due to severe exhaustion and was cautioned that continuing his UFO research could jeopardize his health. So he broke contact with all things UFOs and has not had any more trouble. Since more than 1,500 people reported seeing UFOs in the sky within a 3-month period in Wytheville, it definitely makes this an interesting case. So maybe Danny was really telling the truth. He never really profited from telling his story, and with his health deteriorating, it seems only bad things came from it. So do you think he was tormented by the men in black, who were desperate to keep the photos he took from getting out into the public? Whether Danny's case is real or not, one thing all encounters have in common is the fact that these strange men seem to have a scary amount of knowledge on the person they are talking to. They seem to know dates, times, locations, and descriptions of exactly what the person has witnessed. And this next case is no different, and is probably one of the most interesting cases I have read about. It took place in the 1960s when Timothy Green Beckley, a UFO researcher, claims to have caught a real man in black on camera who had been watching Jack Robinson and his wife for several nights. Jack Robinson was a Jersey City UFO investigator and believes he and his wife were under surveillance by a man in black who knew of Jack's extensive UFO research. The man would often be seen in the doorway of a building directly opposite Jack's home, and on more than one occasion, Jack and his wife would return home to find their house not as they'd left it. It wasn't a mess, but they could tell someone had been in there, and Jack could tell his UFO research papers had been disturbed. Jack's wife said that she had seen a man dressed in black looking up at the house with an emotionless look on his face, and they became convinced they were being observed. They mentioned the strange activity to Timothy Beckley and his friend Jim, and the pair decided to drive over to the house to check it out for themselves. And sure enough, just as Jack and his wife had described, a man dressed in black was stood in a doorway looking up at the house. Tim managed to take this photo and believes it's genuine proof of the Men in Black's existence. Shortly after the photograph was taken, the mysterious man was never seen again. Now, I know it could easily be faked, but no one has come forward to prove that it is, so we may never know. You see, the problem with these reported encounters is that they come from people who claim they have been contacted. And in general, most people do not believe that random members of the public are credible witnesses, with many thinking these people are just hoping to gain fame and fortune. But what about when official government members raise concerns about the men in black? Well, that's when things get interesting. In 1967, the United Air Force expressed concern that there were a number of people claiming to be part of the US services going around dressed in black telling UFO witnesses to keep quiet. Colonel George Freeman, who was a spokesperson for the Project Blue Book at the Pentagon, which was responsible for a series of studies into unidentified flying objects, said this: "Mysterious men dressed in Air Force uniforms or all in black and displaying impressive credentials from government agencies have been silencing UFO witnesses. We have checked a number of these cases and these men are not connected to the Air Force in any way. We haven't been able to find anything out about these men. By posing as Air Force officers and government agents, they are committing a federal offense. We would like to catch one. Unfortunately, the trail is always too cold by the time we hear about these cases, but we are still trying." Although this certainly doesn't prove the existence of the men in black, it's strange that they felt the need to raise that point. So, are the men in black government agents sent out to keep witnesses of UFOs and extraterrestrial sightings quiet? Or are they themselves some kind of alien being from another planet working alongside humans? Or are they nothing more than a mythical figure conjured up in our minds over the years? What do you think? I can tell you one thing from my own experience. Like I said, anyone researching them will have a hard job finding anything on them, as there is a complete lack of information on the
not
internet.
really.
So if they
Yeah.
are real, then they sure as hell are being covered up well. So that's it for this documentary. I hope you've enjoyed. And remember, if anyone knocks on your door late at night, shortly after you've seen or been researching aliens and UFOs, it's probably best not to answer.
I see that Robert shared a link there in Telegram, into the Telegram as well. I brought that up from WFXR. Let me just get this off of the stream here and close that out, and we'll take a look at what he shared in a second, as soon as I can get my shit together. Screen there. I need to tell that not to do that every time. So that's the one, and share. There we go. This is it right here. Almost 35 years later, the Wytheville UFO mystery remains. It says, Wytheville, Virginia, if you're hoping to catch a glimpse of extraterrestrial life, where would you go? Nevada, New Mexico? What about Wytheville, Virginia? The suggestion may seem far-fetched, but it isn't out of the ordinary. And here's some clips from them articles that we just saw in that video. They've got a little flip through here of, there you go. And isn't Quantico in Virginia as well, if I'm not mistaken?
It is.
Yeah.
It's in Quantico.
Yeah. So, in fact, the small town, you know, that's funny because I never realized, like, until recently.
That was the name of the town?
Yeah, I just thought that was what they called the building where the FBI was.
No. But that's...
yeah, I never knew that. Genius that I am.
Happens to the best of us, brother.
In fact, the small town has thousands of UFO sightings, instances where residents looked up at the sky, saw flying saucers. Some objects were reported to have mysterious patterns of lights, while others were said to have glided without a sound. It all started 35 years ago in 1987. There's always been little, what you say, town secrets, and things that never really made sense, said Donnie Gordon, a resident of Wytheville and also a race car driver. Gordon has lived in Wytheville his entire life, from attending school to playing football. He graduated from Wytheville Community College with a degree in business management. Oh, so much for what I said. However, his real passion was broadcast journalism. This is apparently him. Okay. In 1984, Gordon began his journey as the news sports director of WYVE Radio, a local radio station. Over the course of 3 years, he became a source of all things Hytheville. There we go. Or Wytheville. His knowledge was all thanks to his connections he made at the Wythe County Sheriff's Office and certain and a certain early morning routine every day at, or what, I just lost my spot. Every day at the radio station, every morning I would call the local sheriff, who at the time was Wayne Park said Gordon, and I would ask him if anything was going on, kind of catching up on any police activity. And then he goes into, I do believe this video here is covering that, actually. No, this isn't it. It was playing. I saw it and I minimized. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. I think that's what he's about to say here. Remember, hey, Steve, I'm finding out there's no sound on this for the people watching for some reason.
What's that?
People watching aren't getting sound on this.
Same here.
You're not getting sound?
Nope.
Okay. Let me end it then. They're basically just talking about what I was talking about in the article. Yeah, I just got texted that there was no sound on that. That's very strange. I don't know why that was happening. Anyway, yeah, so they were talking about how cops saw it first, and then he saw it when he went out to investigate, and so on. And now I'm told that I they can barely hear me talking. This is so cool. I sounded on my I sounded fine on my phone as far as on my end, but I don't know. So I think I need a new pod board, but I can't afford one. And yeah, so anyway, yeah, so that's basically they're trying to say, like, in here that I don't really know. I think the last video we watched referenced Whiteville.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is another, what would you call it, correlation between UFO sightings and the Men in Black. That's really what it comes down to, and those seem to go hand in hand. Now, what people don't seem to don't seem to understand is whether or not what they are. Like you said they could be all kinds of different things. You even brought up the, what did you call it? I can't remember the word.
Tulpas.
Yeah, that aspect of it. People think they might be aliens, as we saw in that other video. That's a really common belief.
Mm-hmm.
And then others just think they're government people, just like government
So
branch of government.
I'll tell you why I don't think you're a branch of government. Because in all of my research, and my research wasn't just today, I have never once seen someone claim to know anything about them. Every single government agency we know anything about is because of a leak from the inside. And that's how we found out about Area 51 with Bob Lazar. I don't believe they've been around since 1947, at least. And we've heard nothing. You know,
Yeah. He didn't ever get visited by them, though? I don't think, did he? Did he say
I don't remember him saying he did. That was something I was going to bring up. Is the Men in Black never go after your Robert Travises? That's the guy from Fire in the Sky, that movie. You remember that?
Yeah.
None of those people got visited. Betty and Barney Hill didn't get visited. It always seems to be these kind of off to the side cases. The ones that make national news, they kind of don't appear at.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because the attention's already on those people.
And they don't want to bring themselves into attention. But everybody knows about them, though, which is like
now.
Yeah, now. But I mean, like, remember the story about the guy, what was it, Las Vegas recently, who said he saw something land in his backyard or something?
I might have missed that one.
Yeah, I can't really remember the details of it. And then there was the whole thing in Miami. Was it Miami with the mall?
You're talking about the Nephilim attack, January of 2024?
Or whatever they were. Yeah.
Well, that's what the prevailing conspiracy theory is on that. And it wasn't a bunch of kids with sticks fighting at the mall. That response.
Yeah, that was in fire. What did they say? Sticks only, or sticks and fireworks, or something like that? But yeah,
I thought I had heard only sticks, but the thing is, there's something there. And then you said, well, everybody knows the movie. Well, that would be exactly why they would make the movie.
Yeah.
They'd make the movie so that everybody would associate. It's like the theory about why Disney they called Frozen. Because it's based on a classic fairy tale, the Ice Princess or something. But it's called Walt Disney's Frozen. So if you Google Walt Disney's Frozen head, you get results about Frozen.
Yeah, boy, they come up with all kinds of cool little...
It's a true story, though. If you look up Walt Disney's Frozen head, you get the movie Frozen.
So... they even made a cartoon about the movie version. Like, there was like all kinds of different things.
I tried watching it today. It is unwatchable. The entire series, if you're interested, the entire series is on the Internet Archive. You can just go in there, type in Men in Black. You can also look up all the comic books that way. Those seem a little more interesting, but I'm not a comic book guy.
I used to be. I'm not anymore. They're expensive.
It's not even that. I can't read a 13th of a story and then wait a month for the next issue.
Yeah. It's like slow Netflix. With extra steps. Yeah. Let me bring this one up really quick. I said we'd get to it. Unless, do you have something you wanted to share yet?
No. I at this point, I'm pretty much just ready to talk and discuss.
Okay.
Whatever you have.
Yeah, this is from All That's Interesting, and it says the real Men in Black, the quasi-government agents who silence witnesses of alleged alien encounters. And in 1997, Men in Black hit theaters, a science fiction comedy based on Marvel Comics series and starring Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones. The film tells the story of an NYPD officer who unwittingly chases down a disguised alien and is recruited to join a top secret organization, the Men in Black, with the goal of keeping the public unaware of alien refugees on Earth. The movie was a hit. Sequels were made, and most people likely went on with their lives, not thinking much about it. But for a select group of conspiracy theorists and ufologists, the Men in Black were more than just a Hollywood fabrication. In fact, stories of the Men in Black had been circulating for a half a century before the film was released. The real Men in Black, and they're using quotes there, are said to be shadowy, secretive figures disguised in dark suits who discuss or who visit witnesses of strange paranormal phenomenon, typically those who have claimed to see UFOs. Now, here's my problem. It's like we were just talking about. Why did they stop? You know, like literally, why would you stop? If people are still seeing UFOs, which they are,
Mm-hmm.
and the government is now acknowledging that there's UFOs, which they are, why would they all of a sudden go away? Is it part of some other plan?
They wouldn't,
Not needed anymore for whatever reason?
if you're following that they work for the government, they would no longer be needed if the government's admitting that UFOs are real. I would say, I don't know. That's a tough question because to me, out of everything I've read, everything I've seen, they just don't strike me as people who work for the government. They never actually use force. They don't. They show up in groups of 2 or 3, which is very uncommon for government people. You know, if they're going to come harass you, they show up 20 deep. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There was a story I remember years ago I read about that. You just reminded me of that, where the guy said they pretty much had his house surrounded or something.
Who, the Men in Black?
Yeah.
I didn't see that at all.
Yeah, no. There was maybe it was Reddit or some stupid thing like that, but the guy claimed there was like multiple, and they had his house surrounded or something, and he was barricaded inside because he was freaked out, and then he described them in the way they looked, the way that the guys in your video were described, where they didn't look of this world or whatever. So I don't know what to do. I'd have to try to do. That was like years ago that I read that one. But anyway, yeah. So who knows? I mean, like, if they are government, like, how many people have even said they've seen them that were credible? You know what I mean? That's the other thing.
Well, that's the thing. And if the government is involved, I would guess their involvement would be to put out fake stories about them to cover up the real stuff, because they do that all the time. If there's a real story, they'll run 10 fake ones, and then the real one gets lost in the mix. So even if there are people having, so like you're them surrounding that guy's house, okay, that's an anomaly because there's no other stories like it.
Right.
So that seems to me more like someone who either wanted attention and glommed onto the story and added his own flair, because it just, like they say on Sesame Street, one of these things is not like the others.
Yeah.
But that's my take on it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is saying, I looked it up. It said, while a man claiming to be surrounded by men in black is a widely reported paranormal trope, such an event is almost certainly an urban legend or hoax. In the context, it's not taking me right to the actual.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not bringing up or mentioning what maybe I'm misremembering it. Maybe it was the guy was surrounded outside his house or something like that by them. Maybe
it could be.
Yeah, it's probably what it is. It was before Trump was president the first time I read that.
Or like you said, damn it, you read it on Reddit or something where someone had made it up.
Yeah, Reddit's good for that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. We haven't really talked on what an encounter with them would be like. Dr. Herbert Hopkins, did you read anything about him?
I have, yes.
Because he had kind of a detailed encounter that he broke down.
Yeah, did I mark?
I have it right in front of me.
Oh, okay.
I have it written down, so I'll have to read it. But
marked.
It says in September of 1976, Dr. Herbert Hopkins, a 58-year-old doctor and hypnotist, was acting as a consultant with an alleged UFO teleportation case in Maine. One evening when him and his wife and his children had gone out, leaving him alone, so he didn't go with them. Telephone rang. A man identified himself as vice president of the New Jersey UFO Research Organization. That's one thing that's kind of been touched on, but we haven't really talked about, is the harassing phone calls. You'll get a phone call. There's nothing there. You'll get a phone call with garbled nonsense, or just very menacing voices saying things that don't really matter. He asked him if he'd meet with him and discuss it. The doctor did it because, of course, he was a hypnotist. Let me see. Afterwards, the man in black showed up. He was the one that had very pasty white skin. His mouth looked very unnatural. He was wearing gray suede gloves, and it was only after a while that the doctor noticed the reason his lips looked so unnatural was it was literally just a slit in the skin with lipstick on it, because he was accidentally rubbing the lipstick off his lips. He asked the doctor, he told the doctor, "You have 2 coins in your pocket. Let me see them." The doctor handed him the coins. He made them start smoking and turn, I believe, blue. And then he handed them back to him. He said, "Do you know what happened to Barney Hill?" And the doctor said, "No." He said, he said, "I did that to his heart."
Yeah.
The issue with that account was in 1976, Dr. Hopkins had no way of knowing Barney Hill died of a brain embolism. But that's kind of what an encounter is said to be like. That's the most common thing you see. They threaten you. If they threaten you, it's something like that. It's, "We will do something to you." They display what they can do.
Well, and I did have a video bookmark. It's on Facebook, but it's 11 minutes, and it kind of touches on some of the same things that we've already watched, like Dan Aykroyd and things like that.
That Dan Aykroyd video was hard to find.
Yeah, and then it starts bringing up the Mothman prophecies.
Yep, because they're connected to that.
Yeah,
they in West Virginia, the Men in Black did show up connected to the Mothman. So it's not just aliens. That's a very common misconception. It's not just UFOs. I thought you were running a Boar's Head ad for a second.
Oh no.
Oh, that's all right.
I guess I technically am, because it's on the article.
Yeah.
The article, actually, let's finish reading this, and then we can decide if we want to watch that Facebook video or not. MIBs usually appear in groups of 2 or 3, allegedly threatening witnesses to ensure they remain silent about what they've seen. Some have claimed the MIBs are government agents, but others believe they may in fact be shape-shifting aliens in disguise. And we've already talked about that. In either case, those who claim to have had experiences with real men in black are not quick to forget them. This goes on about Harold Dahl and the Maury Island incident.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably familiar with that.
Yep.
1947. This says 1956, but Gray Barker released the book "They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers." And the incident you're talking about, I think, happened in there. I'm talking about, we're doing the book is in 19.
The book that's based on it.
I didn't want to confuse people. Yeah. In 1950, because we just said 2 dates back to back, right when I started. Yeah. The Gray Barker released that book anyway, in which he compiled a series of accounts from people who claimed to have had encounters with aliens before visited strange men, being visited by strange men in dark suits. That's the book cover right there, in case anybody wants. I'm sure it's different now.
Yeah.
From Barker's account, the first mention of Men in Black can be tracked back to June 27, 1947. A man named Harold Dahl, in what came to be known the Maury Island UFO incident. According to Dahl's account, Dahl was on a conservation mission gathering logs with his son Charles near the eastern shore of Maury Island, Washington, in Puget Sound. As he was working, Dahl claimed he saw 6 donut-shaped objects hovering in the air, roughly half a mile above his boat. Before he could make sense of what he was seeing, one of the objects fell from the sky, dropping a barrage of metallic debris, also known as tinfoil in today's. Anyway, some of the debris struck Charles, and Dahl snapped several photographs of the flying objects when the men were back on land. Dahl showed the photographer's photographs to his supervisor, Fred Krisman. Krisman was skeptical, but when he went to investigate the scene for himself, he allegedly saw one of the strange flying objects hovering before him. So the next morning, Dahl claimed he was visited by a man in black in a black suit who was able to describe Dahl's experience with eerily accurate detail. The man then said to him, "What I have said is proof to you that I know a great deal more than about this experience of yours than you will want to believe." Before leaving, the man warned Dahl that bad things would happen to him if he should ever speak of the incident. Although both Dahl and Chrisman later said the incident was a hoax, it did little to stop the conspiracy theorists and ufologists from looking into it. Admittedly, the Maury Island incident gained little notice until Barker's book was published, but it was the way in which Barker connected Dahl's story to that of a young man named Albert K. Bender that truly kicked off the Men in Black fascination. So, Albert K. Bender, you're probably familiar with him too.
Mm-hmm.
In 1952, Albert Bender created an organization known as the International Flying Saucer Bureau, which you brought up earlier. This could be our spot to get into that. Didn't you just bring them up earlier?
Yeah. He's basically the guy. Even though he was the second, he's the guy who's credited with being the first person. He was, had the 3 men in black come to him. The glowing eyes, the hat that covered the eyes. That was his description.
Yeah. A short-lived project mostly known for the magazine it published, Space Review. In a 1953 edition of Space Review, Bender claimed he had been visited by 3 men wearing dark suits, according to Live Science, which is still around today, if I'm not mistaken. These men, he said, told him to cease publishing information about UFOs. That same year, Space Review stopped publishing altogether, and the International Flying Saucer Bureau ceased to be. Many assume Bender had been planning to stop publishing anyway due to his magazine making little money. Still, Bender's story caught the attention of Gray Barker, and it became yet another account in They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers to feature the Men in Black. And there is a probably fake photo of a UFO, I'm assuming.
It'd have to be.
In his book, Barker recounted Bender's experience describing the Men in Black as 3 men in black suits with threatening expressions on their faces, 3 men who walk in on you and make certain demands, 3 men who know that you know what the saucers really are. Gray Barker's book helped spread the Men in Black story, and I don't really have to read the rest of this. I wanted to kind of cover how the story started. You kind of touched on that too,
Yeah.
And then it evolved from there. I mean, we've got, like I said, we've actually got movies on it now. So documentaries even, probably from the History Channel even.
Oh yeah, I found some History Channel stuff.
Of course you did.
I left it alone. I figured you might grab it.
So that's like, so the 2 people on the island admitted that it was a hoax, is what it said.
Well,
did they do that because it was a hoax, or did they do that because they were told to? That's the question.
That's what I was about to say. Devil's advocate. Are they saying it's a hoax because it's a hoax, or are they saying it's a hoax because that's what they were threatened and they said? But if they were threatened, how did the story of the Men in Black get to Gray Barker to put in the book? That doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because you'd have to tell the story to someone, and they were visited almost immediately and told not to tell anyone. So there's a little bit of a hole there.
Yeah,
that math doesn't match.
With a lot of these stories, there's always a hole.
But I believe, if I remember correctly, Dahl wasn't the only one that saw it, so someone else on the island could have said something. Could have been the person who reported it when they came and talked to him. He either recanted the story then or told the story about being visited, and then later on was like, "Listen, guys, this is all nonsense. I want no part of it." That would be my guess.
Yeah, I mean, it could go either way, really. Any one of those ways. Who knows? It's just interesting. It's just interesting because, like, honestly, from what I've ever dug, there are literally only a handful of stories from, and they're mostly from long ago. You know what I mean? Like the 50s, the 40s.
So what happened to him?
Yeah, and then I mean, they didn't even start acknowledging that UFOs were a thing in the government until what, the 90s? Late 90s?
Well, they acknowledged Area 51 in 95 or 96. I think the first government official who legitimately acknowledged aliens I heard of was Paul Hellyer out of Canada, and that was like 2009. And he said aliens are real. We need to prepare because they're not coming here to be your friends.
Yeah.
And everybody laughed at him.
Oh yeah, he was the he was a politician, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Or something like that. Yeah.
he was a retired military guy who became a politician.
I'm trying to see if I can bring that up. A lot of people don't know about that.
Yeah.
Let's see. That was around 2011.
I thought it was 2009. It could have been 2011.
Maybe they're just reporting on it then.
Yeah,
Oh.
no, it couldn't have been because I used to listen to it on Coast to Coast when I worked at Sam's Club. So that was like 2006.
All right, I found the video. Let me Okay. Oh shit, it's 31 minutes long.
Yeah, of course it is.
Wow, he has a lot to say, huh?
Yeah, it's probably a lot of nonsense. And somewhere right around the 18-minute mark, he makes a, 2-sentence thing.
We have a long history.
Yeah, that's too long to even bother with. Holy shit.
Let's see if you can find just a clip of it. I would check Shorts or TikTok. Find a lot of that stuff on there.
Let me see. But
Which
yeah,
I hate to recommend.
He didn't well, this is a clip, but this isn't the one where he announced it. Wasn't he? He was on the floor of Parliament or whatever the hell they got there, right?
Yeah, he was on the floor.
Interviews or some shit. Hold on.
Although as Minister.
All right, this is 9:46. I mean, I doubt we got to watch the whole thing, but I mean, I can bring this one up so people are aware of what you're talking about because a lot of people never heard about that. Let me see if the audio is going to work. There we go. Hopefully the audio works. We'll find out. I think I forgot to switch the audio tab on the last time.
Although as Minister of
Can you all hear that?
Citing reports of UFOs, I was too busy to be concerned about them at the time because I was trying to unify the Army, Navy, and Air Force into a single Canadian Defence Force. And that itself was a kind of battle to the finish. So this was not high on my agenda. But about 10 years ago, I started getting interested due to a young man from Ottawa sending me material on the subject. I told him I was too busy to read it, but he had confidence that someday I would. It took me a while to get around to reading it, but I took it for my summer reading in 2005 and was really impressed with what was contained in it. And what I thought to myself is there are huge issues here, huge issues. And the American people and the people of the world have a right to know what's going on because they're part of it. It's not just an isolated thing. I accept the invitation of Victor Vigiani, who's over here somewhere, and his cohort, Mike Bird, to speak to a symposium at the University of Toronto. And I said, UFOs are as real as the airplanes flying overhead. That gave me the dubious distinction of being the first person of cabinet rank in the G8 group of countries to say so unequivocally. In the 1960s sometime, there was a flotilla of UFOs headed south that crossed into NATO territory in Europe. And the commander-in-chief of the Supreme Allied headquarters in Europe was naturally very shaken. Fortunately, or maybe divine providence, before the panic button was pushed, the flotilla turned around and headed back north. Obviously, they had thought maybe they were Russian, and they were very concerned about it. Anyway, an investigation was launched into this whole subject, and a document was prepared which concluded that at least 4 species had been visiting Earth for thousands of years. And this is my own view at this stage as well. So, except for that, there are just a couple of things that we've talked about that I'd like to refer to. And one was that we were referring to them as they until this morning when Linda Moulton Howe, I think she was the first one, actually named 3 different species. I don't think we can any more refer to them as they because they're not an amorphous mass. They are different species and consequently may have different agendas. I don't think we can say that they
So
all
this
have
guy
the same agenda.
actually, whatever happened to this guy?
Well,
You get the gist of what he's talking about.
Yeah.
He does go on to, but now people, they can reference this video if they want to see the whole thing. But whatever happened to this guy, I wonder.
well, I mean, looking here, he looks like he's about 80.
Yeah.
So he's probably. Am I still coming through?
Yeah, just not very loud.
Okay, I had to turn myself down. I was coming through my headphones real loud. I would say he's probably shuffled loose the mortal coil. That was 12 years ago.
Yeah, he passed away in August 2021.
Yeah, but he was the first person in our government. He said the G8 government, so that's United States, Canada, Europe, all those countries, to admit UFOs are real in public to everyone.
Yeah.
I think at this point, some of it may be disinformation. Some of the stuff you hear from the government may not be true, but there is something going on.
Oh yeah, there's definitely something going on. And you know, to the point of UFOs, it's like there's the religious folks out there. They like to latch onto that. What is it, Project Bluebeam or whatever?
That's not necessarily a religious thing.
Well, I've noticed that it usually a lot of people that latch onto that are, because it's almost like they don't want to believe that there's any kind of possibility that anything but us exists in the universe. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's only religious people that do it, but they do I've noticed a lot of people that push that. And I'm going to be honest with you. I researched that. Nobody else that talks about it seems to even understand that it's not a thing. That Serge, whatever the hell his name was, Sergey, what was his name?
Couldn't tell you.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Anyway, he pretty much made the shit. He speculated that it's something that the government was going to do, and they don't understand that there's more than one stage to it. Anytime there's any kind of like the military's like, oh, look what we saw from our jets, they're like, oh, there it is, Project Bluebeam.
Yeah.
But the thing is that what he says happens in it is they broadcast Jesus over the Middle East and they broadcast Muhammad over the United States or the Christian countries. And that's the start of it. And then they discover fake religious texts. And there's like all these steps. And then they try to say that, of course, they're going to use holograms to beam, an alien invasion into the sky and so on. And I'm like, people don't get any of this. They just say, oh, Project Bluebeam, to kind of be like, yeah, no, aliens can't be real. And it's like, you don't even know what you're talking about. You don't even understand that there's like all these other steps that haven't happened. You don't understand that there's like, nobody's going to fall for a hologram. You know what I mean? If there was ever an actual alien invasion,
Mhm.
and they're going to be on the ground. How are you going to fake that? You know what I'm saying? Without people getting hurt, like
when Project Bluebeam was first developed, it was a long time ago. It wasn't recent. I'm not advocating for it, by the way. You are familiar with like what controlled opposition is, right?
oh yeah,
So if you have you have a nefarious plan, you release bad information that makes information that could expose what you're doing look fake. So I could totally see a plan where they would use some kind of alien attack to get everybody to be on board with global governance. It is the goal. I'm here to tell you that's why they're flooding all the first world countries with third world country citizens. Eventually, that's what they want.
oh yeah, that's not a secret at all. But yeah, he came out with that in the 90s. It's
So,
like,
but religious stuff, there's no religious ties.
no.
The Pope has said in the past that alien life is probably real.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to think about this, all right? If you want to look at it from the God angle, let's say, the Bible says that he created man in his own image, right? That's what the
Yeah.
Bible says. It doesn't say in the Bible that he stopped there. It doesn't say that he didn't go to other planets and create, if you want to look at it the God angle, okay? It doesn't say that. On the other hand, if you believe in the science angle and you believe in, say, evolution, what's to say, okay, we came from something out of the sea, right? Okay, cool. That's where we started. If that's what you believe, fine. What's to say that that's not happening or hasn't happened on other planets as well?
Well,
Because the universe has been ever expanding since Big Bang.
so here's my question. Okay, you know how a dog whistle works, right? Not a news dog whistle, an actual dog whistle.
Yeah.
Because there's frequencies of sound we can't hear. There's frequencies of light we can't see. How isn't it possible there's other things we can't detect?
Oh, yeah. They've made horror movies like that. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's, and his name was Serge Manast. I just couldn't remember the last name.
that sounds like an op.
Yeah.
But
Canadian conspiracy theorist and journalist.
But like I said, I don't advocate in either direction for Bluebeam. I believe it could be a thing. It could be a plan that was made, or it could be bad information that was leaked on purpose.
Or he could have just made it up as well, just for the attention as well. I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios. I don't buy it. I mean, after researching what he claimed it was, and since he's the one where it came from, you got to sit there and go, you know, like, they didn't do any of these things, you know, either way. But yeah, it's all silliness. And then there was something also in there about like sounds using like trumpets or something. And people, remember when people were hearing like weird, almost trumpety sounds over supposedly, I don't know, what was that, 2015, 2016, over their towns and cities years ago. People were like, oh, that's Project Bluebeam and so on. But I don't think we ever got to the bottom of what that actually was, did we?
No, and that happens a lot. Something will happen and people will just forget about it. It's the nature of the news cycle. Ever since CNN launched, people's attention spans have completely gone. All they have to do is distract you for, what, a day? And people forget. You know, we're not doing No Kings anymore. Now we're doing the ballroom. We're all mad about the ballroom. What?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, they were making videos about the trumpet thing as recent as 2003, so apparently it went on for quite some time.
Yeah.
But I remember hearing it long before then.
Well, it clearly wasn't the rapture, because that's supposed to be instant. One blast of trumpets and everyone's gone.
Yeah, well, and also the Bible on that is that was just making the rounds on religious TikTok or whatever.
Didn't you see that documentary with Kirk Cameron in it? Left Behind?
No.
That's a joke, man.
Oh. Yeah, no, they were doing on TikTok about a month ago, maybe now. They were like, oh, the rapture, everybody was talking about it and stuff. And it's like the Bible says right in there, you ain't gonna know when it comes. So what are you even doing? If this is Christian TikTok, how do you not know what your own, you know what I'm saying?
Because
it's all clicks, man. It's pathetic.
it's like that with everything. There's that people who don't understand, the common trope of the communists complaining about capitalism on their iPhone while drinking at Starbucks.
Yeah.
Because you don't understand that if we had the society you wanted, you would have none of these things because it's
Yeah.
wasteful. And if everybody can't have the same, you can't have it. But I digress.
It's I don't know. It's pretty insane. I mean, like with the Men in Black angle, I mean, like you said, it's not just aliens. When you think of Men in Black, you think of aliens, but like you said, they were linked to the Mothman thing and all that.
Yeah.
Like, so, but that's the only thing other than aliens I've ever heard them linked to, though. I haven't heard them linked to like a Bigfoot sighting or
No.
anything like that. So at that point, it's like, so what is their purpose? And was the Mothman an alien? Because we did a show on that, and I never saw anybody say that it was.
Well, nobody knows what he is. So, but if you follow what I was saying, so the first report of what we call Men in Black now was 1947. That doesn't mean there weren't other reports that didn't get gathered up because 1947 information was different. It was written in a book, and if it didn't get picked up by the newspaper, it didn't become popular. Nobody knew about it. It's possible there are more stories that either got lost or never written down. And there wasn't people didn't have the ability to document their every thought. Think about the fact we're 15 years removed from making fun of people for taking pictures of their lunch.
Yeah.
That was 15 years ago. And it hasn't gotten better. Now they're giving their opinions on everything. So it might be so we have kind of the same problem but in an opposite way. So back then it would be hard to get it to people. Now it'd be hard for people to find it because it would be lost. Because you asked what happened to them. It could definitely still be happening. But the algorithm wouldn't favor it. It's not the kind of content that's going to rocket to the top because it doesn't have a catchy song or it isn't political.
Well, and from, re-looking into everything, I kind of began realizing what I realized before is that aside from some videos with some music in them and some, now AI, additions to them and so on, there's not a whole lot on these guys if they existed, for something that made it into a Hollywood movie based on about a handful of actual reports. There's thousands of reports of these guys. It's like a handful.
So the movie was based on the comic, which was a Marvel comic, by the way. So it wasn't some fly-by-night Image comic.
Oh, no.
This was a major studio, and they're very weird. If you look at them, they're very weird. But so they were in the public consciousness, and all of the stories we really looked at, except for one, happened in the 60s, 50s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So there's something about them that sticks in our craw. Now, I've heard one of the things I was listening to doing research was wondering, is the Slender Man related to the Men in Black?
He's a creepypasta, but I mean, I don't know. People
I know he is.
People take those things pretty seriously. There was some girls that killed another girl over that shit, if you remember right.
Absolutely. And it came from somewhere.
Yeah.
Is it the same kind of energy? Is it manifesting in a different way? Yes, it absolutely is a creepypasta. I in no way thought that was a real story, but
no, I know. I was just letting everybody that's watching know if they don't know. There's a bunch of different ones too. Was it Sci-Fi Channel that was doing creepypasta? Like one of their, I can't remember the name of the show now, but they did the one with the guy made out of teeth. Remember a few years ago.
I hate to say this because it's going to make me sound like a bad nerd, but the only thing that has ever been on Sci-Fi Channel that I liked was Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah.
Everything else on there is low budget and terrible.
Oh no! Look at what they look like.
Yeah.
That's not how they look in the movie. Oh, there's the updated version.
So when I was reading up about the comic books, there are 10 like series, right? 4 of them are movie adaptations.
Yeah.
So, and from like the 80s, there have been 6.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured I'd bring some up on the screen. It's interesting how after the movie, the side guy changed races. Apparently, that was happening way back in the 90s, even, huh?
Yeah.
I
Well, that's
knew the
because
comic existed, but I guess I never looked at it or anything.
neither did I until I was pulling it up for today. Um, but that was a different reason it happened in the Men in Black movie. It's because they wanted the Will Smith summer song. And don't forget, same director as Men in Black, the movie Wild Wild West. He played Jim West. That was based on a TV show from the 60s.
Yeah.
But they wanted to have the Wild Wild West song, which was terrible.
Everything Will Smith did was terrible, I feel like, but whatever.
He saved Salma Hayek from the big metal spider.
Oh, God, that movie was awful. I mean, Men in Black. Okay, I'll give them Men in Black. I mean, that was a decent movie when it came out, right? I mean, I didn't hate it.
I watched it today.
Did you?
It's not that. I watched the first 2. That's as
Yeah.
far as I'll go, but it's a Steven Spielberg mid-90s popcorn movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
And
Yeah.
it was when special effects were starting to get big. I will say I like that in the second one Michael Jackson plays an alien with no makeup.
Yeah.
He wants to be Agent M. That was pretty funny. I forgot Johnny Knoxville was in the second one.
Yeah, he played a goofball in that one. That was a pretty good role.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've covered pretty much everything. People either think they're an alien or that they're a government agency, and they've pretty much gone off the radar. Like they came around in the Area 51 times, let's say, in that general time
40,
frame, give or take.
47.
Yeah, 47 through I think 50s. You'd hear, but at the end of the day, they kind of died off, except for the stories about them, which really do boil down to a handful of stories.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from I guess like internet threads or whatever that
Mm-hmm.
we couldn't. I mean, that's just anybody. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like the official stories and information on them is kind of limited, and they kind of seem to have disappeared if they ever did actually exist. It could, it could be something along the lines. No, that wouldn't make sense
Well, I
because
mean,
something had to happen for them to show up. I was going to say it could be like those clowns that used to be trolling people all the time.
remember that? I was thinking about that not too long ago. That was like 2016, 2017, somewhere in there.
Yep. And then not too long after that, people were tying get well soon balloons around dead animals.
Yeah.
People thought it was the clowns again, but nobody was seeing them. Yeah. Weird times to be alive. But yeah, so I mean, really, if you really do digging on them, I mean, you'll find a wealth of information, but that wealth of information is all about the same things.
Yeah.
That's really what it boils down to.
Well, there's a
know.
couple theories. Like
Yeah.
you said, government agent, alien or manifestation of bad energy, just a modern reimagining of something from the past. Kind of like how all the ancient civilizations had the same ideas, even though they weren't connected in any way.
Yeah.
What's the word I'm trying to think of? Not remembered conscience, but shared conscience, shared memories, genetic memories. And these things kind of always pop up. And like I said, you're going to describe it using the parlance of your times. The things that stick with me, like I said, are the fact that they're described as not functioning right.
Yeah.
Not being able.
Some of the stories.
Yeah, not being able to talk right. And I mean, another thing that you have to consider is a lot of the people that have these stories were into sci-fi as well.
Yeah.
And
UFOs.
Yep. And I guess I wish my memory didn't stink like it does, but my memory's bad. But there was a tie-in with Aleister Crowley. He ties into everything, even even Scientology. So I don't know. We'll leave it up to you. You guys decide and let us know, and we'll go with whatever you say.
Yeah, let us know in comments what you think they are.
Yeah.
I've not heard the Aleister Crowley tie-in.
Yeah.
I just kind of looked it up. Secret Agent 666.
Yeah, he was a spy for the British government.
Right.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. Also, see what it's not mentioning.
Yeah,
tie-in.
What's that?
MI5 it says, but not at Men in Black. Which MI5
is the British CIA.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what it was because it was just mentioned in passing. Like I listened to and read so much stuff about this, but there was a mention that connected him to it, but I can't remember what it was.
Huh. Yeah, I've never heard that. Yeah, that it would be interesting. I mean, at the end of the day, it seems like we're not ever going to really know what they actually were, whether we want to or not. That's not something we're going to know until somebody who knows, if anybody does, comes forward and says this is what they were.
Well, that's what I
figure. The other story, the guy said, we made that up. Either they were serious and they made it up, or they were told to say that. So, it's like somebody knows who these people are, if they're real, or these creatures are.
Yeah.
And until they come forward, it's like we're stuck with what we have.
Well, like I said, that's why I don't think they're government agents, because absolutely nobody has given anything.
Yeah, this leak by now or something, documents.
Something would have appeared somewhere, a project name for it. I heard people tenuously try to connect him to Majestic 12. And it's like, no, that's not what it was. I also heard J. Edgar Hoover. Because when they did the Majestic 12 and they investigated UFOs, they came to the conclusion that the UFOs themselves are not dangerous, but the people who are interested in them are. And so they would send out. So that's one of the theories, is they were sending them out to shut down UFO stories because J. Edgar Hoover was paranoid, and he was.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we didn't really figure a whole lot more out, but we definitely learned some interesting things, different angles and so on that people may not have known. I didn't expect to figure anything out on this because I remember digging into them before and I'm like, okay, so like what we just discussed, that didn't help me. So it is what it is.
Just real quick, if anyone's interested, I would absolutely recommend the last podcast on the left. They did a 3-part series on him. A lot of good information. You got to listen to Henry's terrible improv, but there's a lot of good information in there.
Yeah. There's all kinds of documentaries too as well. But yeah. And of course they all cover the same things we've covered tonight, just more in depth,
That's definitely why I recommended them, because they use humor and it makes it a little easier to take.
Yeah.
And it's a little easier to pay attention to for 3 hours.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us, to everybody who has. Until next time, we'll figure out next week's topic and we'll be back. And I'll talk to you all later. Yeah, follow us on X if you can. All right, guys. We'll see you. Thanks for joining. Peace out.